You know, it doesn't matter where you work, a tiny startup or a massive corporation. The real work gets done by teams. But here's the thing. Getting the team structure right is maybe one of the toughest challenges out there. So today, we're going to tackle this head-on, not with some fuzzy ideas, but with a sharp consultant's toolkit designed for clarity. Let's dive in. Have you ever been on a team that just felt a little off? You've got smart people, you've got what seems like a clear goal, but things are just grinding. The meetings are a drag, and you're not getting the results you should. It's a feeling we've all had. And you start asking, is it the people? The manager? But what if the real problem is something much deeper? And here's the key insight. We almost always blame the players when we really should be looking at the playbook. The problem isn't a lack of talent, it's a flawed design. The very blueprint used to build the team was wrong for the job from the start. It's kind of like trying to build a skyscraper using the plans for a treehouse. It's just never going to work. So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get a handle on the blueprint problem itself. Then, I'm going to give you a really powerful four-dimensional framework to work with. We'll do a deep dive into each part, solve a tricky real-world puzzle with our new tool, and then wrap up with some key questions you can use to start building better teams right away. Okay, so how do we get past that treehouse blueprint problem? Well, to cut through all the confusing labels out there, task forces, committees, squads, guilds, we need a clean, logical system. We're going to use what consultants call a me-see approach. It just means our categories are mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. Basically, this framework lets us break down and classify any team, giving us a clear, common language to work with.
All right, let's start building this framework out. First up, and honestly the most important dimension, is purpose. This is the team's why. Simple question, why does this team exist? Is it to solve one specific temporary problem? Is it to continuously improve a process? Without total clarity on its purpose, a team is basically lost from the get-go.
Next up, we've got composition, which is all about the who. And this is way more than just a head count. It's about the strategic mix of skills and perspectives. Do you have everyone from one department giving you deep expertise, but maybe some blind spots? Or are people pulled from all over the organization to get that big picture view? The composition has to be tailored to serve the team's purpose.
Our third dimension is autonomy, and this one defines the how. Really, this is about power. Who calls the shots? Does a manager define the problem, the solution, the budget, and the team just executes? Or does the team have the freedom to find its own problems, pick its own leader, and run with minimal oversight? This dimension is a huge factor in a team's speed and ability to innovate.
And finally, our fourth dimension is modality, the where. And in today's world, this is obviously more critical than ever. Is everyone in the same room working face-to-face? Are they a fully virtual team scattered across the globe, or some kind of hybrid? How and where a team works has huge implications for everything from communication to culture.
Okay, so theory's great, but what does this actually look like in the real world? This is where it gets interesting. Let's do a quick deep dive, starting with purpose and composition, and see how our framework brings some much-needed clarity to a few common team types. Now, this is a perfect example of how subtle differences in purpose can completely change a team's function. See, both of these teams are about improvement, but their missions are totally different. A general improvement team gets a very specific fenced-in problem from management. Think, reduce errors on this one assembly line. But a process improvement team, they get a much bigger mission like fix our entire customer onboarding process, which could involve sales, legal, tech, everybody. And of course, there's the classic purpose-driven team, the project team, sometimes called a task force. Its purpose is singular and it's temporary. Launch this product, plan this conference. It has a clear beginning and a clear end. And notice how that purpose shapes everything else. The members are picked for very specific skills, and its autonomy is usually pretty low because management sets the rules. Now let's zoom in on composition. The perfect example here is the cross-functional team. The whole point of this team is its diverse makeup. You've got engineers, marketers, finance people, and operations folks all in the same room, and that's by design. You build a team like this when a problem is just too big or too complex for any one department to handle on its own. It's all about breaking down those silos.
All right, we've covered the why and the who. So let's get into the operational side of things. Autonomy, how the team works, and modality, where it works. These are the dimensions that really define a team's day-to-day rhythm and culture.
Think about autonomy on a spectrum. On one end, you have your management-led teams.
Here, a manager or a sponsor is holding the reins pretty tightly. They set the task, they check the work. But on the other end, you've got self-directed teams. These teams are given a broad mission and are trusted to figure out the details. They can be incredibly innovative, but they also need a lot of trust and maturity to work well.
And now for modality. You can't talk about this without talking about virtual teams. Their whole existence is defined by using technology to close physical distance. And this is amazing, right? It opens up a global talent pool, offers tons of flexibility. But it also makes things like building real connections and having clear communication that much harder. The key is that a team's modality has to be a conscious choice, not just something you fall into.
So, we've got our four-dimensional framework. It's a neat model, sure, but can it actually solve a real problem? Well, let's put it to the test with something I call the parallel team puzzle. This is based on a real point of confusion from the world of Six Sigma certification. Okay, take a look at this. This is a sample question from an official quality certification exam. Read it carefully. It's describing a team with people from different areas, with different skills. Based on everything we've just talked about, what's your answer? For most of us, one option just jumps right off the page.
I mean, it seems obvious, right? It has to be B, cross-functional. The definition is almost a word-for-word match for the question. The team is defined by its diverse composition. Here's the catch, though. The official answer key for this exam says the correct answer is C, parallel. And that's where the puzzle starts. How in the world is that the right answer?
So what's going on? Well, the source of all this confusion is that the term parallel team is just dangerously vague. It has at least two totally different meanings. One definition is about having competing internal teams race to solve the same problem. The other definition describes an outside team, like a group of consultants brought in to work on something the main organization can't handle. And neither of these really fits the question perfectly.
And this right here is the whole point. Arguing over whether the answer should be B or C is missing the bigger picture. The problem isn't the question, it's the industry's sloppy overlapping labels. But our four-dimensional framework cuts right through that. Instead of getting stuck on the label parallel team, we can just ask, what is its composition? The answer is clearly cross-functional. The framework forces a level of precision that these fuzzy labels just can't provide.
This all leads us to the most critical part of this discussion, how you can actually apply this thinking. We've gone through the theory, we've seen how it can solve a weird puzzle, so now let's turn this framework into a simple, powerful tool you can use for your own teams.
Here it is. It all comes down to 4 essential questions for your team's blueprint, one for each dimension. First, purpose. Is the mission crystal clear to every single person? Second, composition. Do we have the right people with the right skills in the room? Third, autonomy. Does the team have the freedom it needs to actually succeed? And fourth, modality. Is the way we're working helping us, or is it getting in the way?
And that's really the power of this framework. It takes you from that vague feeling of frustration to a very specific place to take action. So as we close out, I'll leave you with this challenge. Think about the most important team you're on right now. Which one of these 4 dimensions, purpose, composition, autonomy, or modality, is your weakest link? What's the one tweak to your team's blueprint that could change everything? Because the answer to that question is where you need to start.